Hi everyone, I'm Kremlin here for the Techies, and today I'm going to be walking you through a pretty complex logical process which involves converting a regular link to a clickable link. Now, why would I want to do this? If you know anything about user input in HTML, if you just type in a link, it won't automatically make it into a clickable link. You would have to put the A tags and then the href and stuff like that around it. But if you noticed, plenty of communication tools out there, like Facebook for example, they automatically convert your links to be clickable. But something has to happen between the time when you enter that link and the time when it's displayed. They have to manipulate that text somehow to make it clickable, and that's what we're going to be doing today. It's going to take a long time, I'm not going to lie, and plenty of logic involved, so get your thinking cap on, I guess, if you've got one, and sit back. Alright, here we go. Now, the first thing that we really need to do is we need to analyze what our string is going to look like. The string is, whatever the user gives us. So I went ahead and made a diagram. Now, ignore everything except for the things that are in red. Now, this is what our user is going to be giving us. He's going to be giving us some string of text that it may or may not have a link inside it. Now, if it does have a link, it's going to have whatever is before the link, the text that's before the link itself, and then the text that is after the link. Now, it doesn't necessarily have to have any of those things, but we're going to account for that later. And the way that I use to identify where the link is, to identify starting position, is I'm going to look for http:// which is at the beginning of every link. And the ending position is going to be the space after that link. Now, alright, here we go. Let's get started. The very first thing that we need to do is we need to create a function that looks for the link and it says if there is one or not. So we're going to make a function get link. There we go. Whoops. Alright, and what we're going to be analyzing, we'll call that input. Alright, now the contents of the link, and alright, we are set to go. Now, the way we're going to find if there's a link in this text at all is a little preset function in PHP called Substr. So let's go ahead and make a variable if http, and we're going to have this function Substr, and the parameters of it is going to be input and the string that we want to look for, http://. Alright, now what I've said is I'm using this function right here, Substr, which looks for the amount of occurrences of this string within this string. Okay, so we're actually not going to be using the amount of these occurrences. What we're going to do is we're going to see if there are any occurrences at all. So the next thing we need to do is we want to create a while statement, a while loop. Now, why do we want to do that? The reason is there could be several links, not just one, in the string that the user gives us. So we don't want to just do this process once, we want to repeat it until there are no more regular unclickable links left. Let's go ahead and make the while loop. Alright, and our condition is going to be, there we go, if http is not equal to false. Now, the only time when this function, the Substr, would give us false is if there were no occurrences. Now, if there are not no occurrences, double negative there, that means if there are any occurrences, that means that we're going to do this while loop. Alright, now let's set the actual parameters of this while loop, and there you go, there's the borders. Now, before we move on, we want to make sure that this string returns to the place that we called this function from. So there you go. Right now, what this will do is it'll look for if there is a link in the text and it's not going to do anything for it because there's, a while loop with nothing in it, but it will just give the text back. So this should work. Alright, now what we actually want to do inside the text. We want to add A tags and href and then the link itself before the link, and then a /a tag after the link. So we are going to actually have to make another function that we're going to be calling up in here. So we want to remake input, and here's our new function. We're going to call it convert link, and our thing that we're actually going to be working with is input. Alright, and now what this function will do is it'll convert it and it'll make it clickable. Now, in that function, which I'll explain later, we're going to actually convert these HTTPs into some random text for reasons which I will also explain later, but the point is that we want to once again look for this HTTP. Actually, I can just copy this. I don't need to type it out again. There you go. It's going to do this again, and if there is still an HTTP in the string that is returned after this function is executed, then it'll do the process again, and it'll keep doing it until there are no more HTTPs. This may not make sense to you because it's like we're actually doubling the amount of HTTPs by putting an A tag in there and then an href, which would, obviously also contain the HTTP. But I'll explain how we're going to get around that later. Meanwhile, let's work on this new function. Alright, so let's go ahead and make our function. So we're going to have function convert link as I specified before, and just to make things a bit easier to work with, I'm going to do string here instead so it doesn't get kind of messed up. Now let's take a look again at the diagram and what we want to do in this convert link function. What we want to do is we want to insert an A tag and then href is equal to the link before the link and after the start text, so between these two parts. And then we want to close that tag with /a at the end, between link and end text. Alright, so let's talk about what these temps are for. Temp 1 is going to contain whatever's before the link, the start text. Temp 3 is going to contain the link itself, and temp 4 is going to hold whatever is after the link. Now you may notice that there's a temp 2. Now why do we have this? Well, it'll actually be more apparent after we start doing this. So hold your questions for now. There we go. There we go. What we want to do is, first of all, we want to locate the starting position. We want to find where this is. What we're going to use for that is actually another preset function, which is stir pose. It's the position of a string within another string. So we're going to specify what string we want to use and then what we're going to look for. So we're going to look for http://. This will give us the starting position. Now we want to split up the string into the temp1 and temp2. Well, we're going to do temp1 first. The method we're going to use for this is, what we're going to use is another function called Substr. Now what this does is it pretty much takes a part of a string and makes a new string out of it. It looks for the starting position, which we are going to specify, and the ending position, which we are also going to specify. If you're attentive, you will know that we have just found the ending position. Alright, so what string do we want to split stuff from? We're going to get string, and then 0 as our starting position, and then start pose as of the end of temp1, which is right here. So, alright, we've got that. Cool. Now we want to get temp2. So this is pretty easy also. We're going to use substr again, and we're going to go ahead and use the same string, Nothing is actually done to the string. This guy right here, nothing is done, so we can just keep on using it. It just actually makes a new string from the information there. And our starting position is going to be start pose, and then that's it. We don't need to input anything else for here. If we just leave the third parameter blank, which is the ending position, is just going to go until the end of the string, which is, what we want. Alright, so what have we done? We have just defined temp1 and temp2. Temp1 ends at the starting position, and temp2 starts at the starting position and goes until the very, very end of the string. Okay, now before we go on to defining temp3 and temp4, I actually want to skip ahead a little bit to the very end of this function, and we are going to reprint the string as a clickable link. So we're going to do temp1, which is before the string. Then we're going to put a little period there, which is what we use to separate elements. And then we're going to do href, go, and then we're going to do, actually end it right there. Alright, and then we are going to do a little alt temp3. Now, why are we doing this? I'm kind of working non-linearly here, so you're going to have to take my word on this. But what alt temp3 is the changed version of temp3. If you remember, temp3 is the actual link itself. So I guess I can just say temp3 right now. It would make it a little more sense. But alt temp3. Bear with me, and this will be explained in due time. And alright, moving on, we're going to have the end of this tag here. And then we are once again going to put alt temp3, which is whatever the link is that we defined, and then we're going to close the tag like that. And at the very end, let's not forget that we want to put the very end, the temp4 out there. Alright, so this will work. This gives us the final string that we're going to send back to getLink. And, oh yeah, of course, return the string. There you go. Now, it shall work. Alright, now let's move back in time a little bit to defining string 3 and string 4. This is kind of the trickiest part of this, in my humble opinion. And alright, before we go on to that, we're going to have to know the end position. Now, how do we know the end position? We cannot derive it from the original string because there could be spaces in the start text. What we have to do is we have to define it in terms of temp2 because there cannot be a space, in a link. There has to be a space at the end of it though. So we're going to go ahead and say end pose is equal to strpose. I'm going to say temp, the variable temp, not for temp, temp2, and we're going to be looking for a space. There you go, a space. Alright, the tricky part. The problem that we run into is if the end of the link is the end of the text of the string that the user gave us, which is like if they ended their little comment with the link and nothing after it, then temp3 is actually going to be like the combination of temp3 and temp4, which is like temp2, which means that we have no need of temp4. And if we don't account for this, it'll mess us up. So we want to determine if temp2 is, if the link is actually the end. So we are going to do strlen, and I'll talk about what that means in just a second. And we are going to do end pose. End pose is equal to 0. Okay, what did we do? Strlen looks for the length of the string. Now, if the length of this right here is 0, which means that it didn't really give us anything, if it is 0, then that means that the link is actually the end of the string, and we have no need of doing much more. Alright, so what we're actually going to do here is we're going to say that temp3 is the same as temp2, which makes sense if you think about it. It would be like moving the temp2 over here, which, overlaps with temp3. Okay. And then we have no need of temp4, so just to account for all things, we'll say it's nothing. There you go. There's nothing in those quotes. Alright. And then, of course, we're going to have an else statement. And the else statement is going to contain a little more work. So we're going to say that temp3 is actually another substr. So I'm going to have to do that again. Substr. And this time we're going to be splitting up temp2. We're going to be splitting that up into, I always forget that. Alright, we're going to start at the 0 of temp2, which is the beginning of the link, and we're going to be going to the end position, which is the position of the space. Oops. Alright, and then temp4, oh, there shouldn't be a space there. Okay, temp4 there should be an equal sign. Wow, I'm messing up. Temp4 will be substr of temp2, and the starting position will be the end position, which is what I'm saying is it starts wherever the space is. So it goes from the end position until the very end of the text. Well, this looks all dandy and nice now, but we still have this little problem that we still have an that we still have an HTTP in the string that we output. So it's gonna do all this stuff to the string, it's gonna put the A's around it, the href, but it's going to go up here, and it's going to keep on saying that we have an HTTP there. And that gives you an infinite loop, which does bad things to your browser and server. So, a handy little trick that I've used is to use an alt temp. What am I saying when I'm doing that? I'm actually going to replace the HTTP with some random stuff. So we're going to say that alt temp3 is equal to str replace, which is another function. I'll talk about that in a little bit. Is going to replace HTTP : / with I don't know, random stuff. I use, well, you can say like there, mashing of the keyboard. Just remember what you set that as. And we're going to replace, what string are we going to do this to? I'm going to do this to temp3. And yeah, there you go. And we actually have to do the same thing here. So let's put that in here. And this should work, if I'm not mistaken. Let me go through this, see if I missed anything. There might be some syntax errors, but as far as I know, it should work. Oh yeah, one last thing, very, very important thing. We've changed these to random text, right? But that's just a placeholder for the HTTP. Before we exit the function, we actually want to go back to our getLink, and we want to change it back. So we will say that input, and if you remember, input is what we originally took from using the getLink. We're going to do str replace, and I think you can tell where this is going. Geez, I can't spell. Str replace, we're going to replace the random text that we entered in, which is that right there. We're going to replace it with HTTP : / of course. and we're going to do that to the input. Okay, now it should work. Of course, there's colons that I'm missing, and you might have to do some debugging with this, as there is quite a bit of stuff here, quite a bit of logic going on. But as far as I've seen, this is pretty much foolproof, unless somebody, you know, figures out whatever this is. But that's not too big of an issue. Yeah. This has been a pretty epic tutorial, if you ask me. There's a whole bunch of logical stuff going on here, which I like, but when you get some beautiful code like this in the end, I think it's worth it. And it accomplishes a fairly simple thing with quite a bit of stuff here, so I like that. For some reason, I like complexity. If you find an easier way to do this, like filters or whatever, I kind of looked into that, didn't really go far into it, please message me, or you can discuss this function in the comments below. But yeah, this has been Kremlin for the Techies. I'm pretty sure this is the longest video I've ever done. So, for the dedication, you know, subscribe and rate. Make sure to visit th3techies.com. Bye, everyone.